Hey, do you guys want to get some pizza?
We have big heads.
What are you doing? What are you... Ugh.
You have big head now.
Growing up, I played GoldenEye on N64 religiously, which is easily one of the greatest games ever made. And if you don't agree with me, you can fight me, you punk ass bitch. But in the game, there was a cheat mode called DK mode, which made all the players' heads massive, and it was just the best. And it's an effect we've always wanted to do on the show. But it's also something that you've seen in all kinds of music videos like G-Eazy, 2 Chainz, Imagine Dragons, Tyga, and so on. Plus, it's just a really fun effect that can add a quirky and fun feel to any of your projects. And the best part about it, it's incredibly simple to pull off. But if you don't have a bike pump, you can also do this inside of After Effects or any compositing software for that matter, which obviously the first thing that we need to do is shoot our footage.
Obviously.
And when you're shooting, the main thing that you don't want to forget is to grab a clean plate. This is just good practice in general whenever you're shooting VFX, since you never know when you might need it. And of course, in this instance, we definitely need it. The other thing to keep in mind is how much your actors move. If you shoot like we did here without a green screen, you're going to do a lot of roto. So the less they move, the better, especially when turning their heads. You could do it, of course, but it's just going to up the difficulty. But now that we have our footage, we're going to bring that into After Effects, create a new comp, and then duplicate the footage. We'll name this left head since we have 2 in this shot, then duplicate again and call it right head. Now we need to do that roto work we talked about, and there are a few ways to do this. The option we decided to go with for this first shot was stabilizing the head. This is needed because if you scale up the head to twice the size, any movement the actor makes will be twice the original distance, and this can separate the head from the body. Stabilizing it also makes it a lot easier to roto. Next, we'll track the motion of the actor and assign it to a null. We're going to create a solid layer and set the stabilized head layer below to alpha matte. On the solid layer, mask around the head and add any keyframes needed. If your actor's head is still moving too much and you don't want to keyframe the mask for hours, what you could do, depending on your shot, is duplicate these 2 layers and freeze frame the bottom head. Make sure to delete any keyframes from the stabilization, then on the top solid, delete the mask and create a new mask just around the face. Then feather it. This way you have the outer edge of the face static and only the center of the face in motion. And now that you have your head, pre-compose these layers together. For Josh's big head, we first shot the normal version of him just for his body and the surroundings. Then we chose to do a green screen as an alternate method for the head layer. This can save a lot of time since you don't need to roto out the entire head, although you will still need to roto around his chin. Once you have the head rotoed, or multiple heads if there's more than one in the scene, link the head to the tracked null for the actor, then move the anchor point to the chin and scale up to the size that you want. Now, we're dumb. And while in a hurry to get this shot, we didn't realize that we were shooting in 1080 instead of 4K. So with scaling things up when we're already shooting at 1080, the heads start to get pixelated. So shooting in 4K or the highest quality that you have available to you will definitely help you out a lot here, and it's something that we wish we did. But if you want more of a stylized look like we have here, just use the bulge effect to enlarge the head. And we can also use a smaller bulge for each eye. And with this particular head inflating gag, we can just keyframe the scale and bulge height to increase with each pump. And it doesn't just have to be big heads, it could be little heads like the fella in Beetlejuice. Just scale down the head and use a clean plate behind to hide the original head. Then use a liquify tool to shrink the neck, or make long necks, or floating heads. Really just whatever, whatever you want to do. sponsor is us. Our store, our Triune digital store. If you didn't know, we do have our own store where we sell a bunch of assets like music assets, VFX assets, sound effects assets, LUTs, and we have a lot of filmmaker apparel there as well. The whole idea behind the store is to create pro-level assets for you guys that aren't at the prices that you would normally have to spend for things of this quality. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely check that out. And yes, this is weird because it's not actually a sponsor, it's our own site, but you know, you gotta water the thing to make it grow, am I right? Hey, Barry. Going back to our low quality issue that we were talking about before when scaling the heads up, what we really should have done in that opening sketch is what we did with this shot here. In the main shot, we have me in the distance playing it out. Then I did another take much closer to the camera on green screen. Now we have the head close to that final size that it'll be, so there's no loss of quality there. But we didn't think of that at first because, you know, we're dumb. So you live and learn.
No, I'm just trying to figure out how old I am.
Ask your mother.
But moving on to this trippy transformation effect of Josh here, we wanted to have a bit of a shaky, chaotic feel, and because Josh has his eyes wide open at first, we thought it would be fun to give them something to do. So to start, we tracked one eye and linked that to a null, then did the same with the other eye. Then we click on both of those nulls and hit P on your keyboard to show the position. Create an adjustment layer and add a bulge effect. Alt-click on the bulge center stopwatch and you should see this drop down in the layer. Click and drag the pick whip tool to one of the null positions and let go, and this has now linked the bulge effect position to the null so it will move with Josh's eye. Now move the bulge over and alter the size to your liking. After that, keyframe the height to increase and decrease rapidly and end when he closes his eye. Then duplicate the adjustment layer for the other eye, click the bulge center stopwatch and alt-click again and pick whip this to the position of the other eye null. Then if you want to alternate the bulging pattern, just highlight the keyframes and move them left or right. Also, I just said bulge several times and didn't make a single joke, so maturity.
How old are you?
Next, to give it a bit of an echo effect, you can duplicate your footage, slide the timing over, then set the blending mode to lighten. This gives us a weird, hypnotic sort of look. For the shaking, we used a new adjustment layer and Red Giant Universe's Shake. After that, we added another adjustment layer with After Effects Optics Compensation effect reversed and keyframed the amount to increase and decrease, giving us this pulsing effect. Then we did the same, but with a keyframed radial effect to add some blur. Finally, we added one more adjustment layer with Red Giant Universe's Chromatic Aberration to add more distortion, blur, and that chromatic aberration color around the edge of the frame. And versions of this effect can be useful for things such as panic attack scenes or adrenaline and drug trip scenes or even dreamlike scenes to give it more of a surreal look. But that's it, some tripping out eyeballs and giant heads. As always, we would love to see your version of this effect, so like last week, post your version in the link below. We'll pick 3 of our favorites to post to Twitter and hook you up with our hits and risers pack. Our 3 picks from last week can also be found in the notes below as well. And if you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell because, you know, YouTube. And until next time, don't forget to write, shoot, edit, repeat. Hey, Barry.